Everybody's here. Venetia, do you want to start the report? We'll just get started. We only got a minute and I don't care. So, okay, the purpose of this meeting is just to get answers. We have got other agenda items. I mean, besides this, we've got, if there's time, we're going to continue working on our general plan, but we want to put you folks first. And so what the process will be is that we'll get all the questions answered and everything like that. And then we'll discuss this offline or at another time, or depending on what the time is. But once we're done with the discussion and all of our questions are answered, then you can either stick around and listen to us discuss it, but there can't be any more interjection, or you can go, take off or whatever. So we're flexible. So, and obviously we'll need some questions answered sometime in between that. So anyway, with that, Lou, do you want to start us off on this?
Well, why don't we start with Greg? There are several issues. Stormwater is obviously one of them. He's the most.
Yeah, he's got the experience in it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he does.
Maybe we ought to lead off with that. I have quite a few other things, but I'd defer to you on the stormwater.
Okay, thanks. Questions? You're discharging into the canal. Do you have approval to do so? And if so, are you treating that water before it enters the canal, which is a requirement of the state and the feds?
The drainage ditch next to the canal, not into the canal.
Okay, but are you pre-treating that water before it enters?
Stormwater? None of the stormwater.
Okay, stormwater needs to be pre-treated before it leaves your site. You aware of that? That's a state rule.
How do they pre-treat? Just wonder.
Well, you have many options. So there's oil water separators, there's sand separators.
Yes, so we have all of those through our drainage boxes.
Okay, well, then you're treating.
Yeah, so they're all traded through those.
Okay.
As far as separation
So
of
you
sand
got
and
the-
sediment traps.
Your drawings didn't show that. They didn't show that they had oil water separators or sand traps or whatever they were, as a combination box.
That part. They're just the standard grate boxes with the offset. And
Okay, I'm just,
Flows.
that's
Yeah.
what okay?
Yep.
The state also requires that you contain 80% of your runoff, 80th percentile storm on your property before you discharge.
Yeah, Jim should have some of those calculations on the water detention ponds.
Waiting for him to show up.
Just Jim Flint?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have the detention pond out in the north. You got the Peterson property site here, and
I'd love to show you, but all I brought was digital, so.
yeah, this
Oh, we've got this, yeah.
Sam Knight property is somewhat kind of connected in the same stormwater
Right.
flow and design. So they have that stormwater drain there too that's connected to our system, so it's
Okay.
kind of a dual use area.
The biggest question
And
is,
back retention area.
are you meeting the requirements of the 80th percentile?
Yeah, Jim should have those calculations.
So-
I can't answer.
And if you're not, then obviously you have to upgrade.
Jim was out doing surveying today to answer some of those questions.
Which is good.
I imagine that's where he still is.
Could be.
So we'll have to provide that once he provides the rest of those calculations.
All right, no problem. So those are the biggest ones I had is you have to pre-treat before you discharge. During your construction, you have to do your SWIP and all that kind of stuff. Pretty standard stuff there. Robbie will take care of all of that. So that's what they do, so. But the bigger issues, do we have any groundwater issues out there?
No, well, there's groundwater is right below the surface out there, yes, but
Jim?
Okay.
we don't have issues with not in our areas, not in our pits, not in our
Okay.
things, so.
So your containment areas or your retention areas are dry?
Yes.
Detention,
Yeah.
okay. Do you know what rate you're releasing at? Is that Jim?
I can help with that. That'd be me.
Okay,
Let me pass these out. I thought if we could hit 4 areas, if we could jump to the landscaping first, then go back to the piping.
We're not jumping there.
We're working on
We're on
the
stormwater now.
We're
We're
on
gonna talk
stormwater.
about landscaping later.
Okay. That would be the first piece.
Walked over it yesterday, so.
I'm very familiar with it.
Would you like a copy?
Yeah, I drive past it every day, but it's good to-
In a nutshell, on the piping, Peterson has a lot of 6 and 8 inch piping. And I'm not going to say that that is in today's codes typically what we design to. What's made it amazingly effective has been Peterson has done all their roof drains, piped them directly into the piping system. And I believe that's why they've been able to get by as successfully as they have. Yes, if you had a 30-acre parking lot, trying to slope that, surface slope that all into piping systems, this doesn't calc out very well. And that's what the numbers are saying. So what we're looking for is an allowance for what's worked well for the last 30, 40 years. They haven't experienced any flooding problems.
Okay,
And I believe it's, which is surprising, to be quite frank, from the cows. But it's probably because the roof drains are piped so well into the underground system.
and they have approval to discharge these 5 locations into that ditch?
Well, they've been doing it for decades.
I understand that,
That's not the answer, though.
Are you saying, do they have written
Yeah,
approval to
yeah.
do so? Not that I'm aware of.
When the engineer says the system's undersized, what specifically is he talking about?
He's talking
The
about.
diameter of the pipes?
Yeah, the diameter of the pipes and the detention.
Both.
Yeah.
That's a statement that doesn't tie, based on what you've seen now. Yes, we're using smaller pipes, but there's a lot of them and they're all directly plumbed and versus just letting it run off into a drain that goes out to that spot.
No, I understand that. I'd be interesting to have a conversation with the engineer, which I will, I don't care whether using pipes or not. I mean, and if he's not aware of your piping system, we need to know that. So when he makes the evaluation that it's undersized, he's collectively looking at all the parts of the drainage system. And,
the size of the pipe's pretty much identified on here. 6-inch PVC, 6-inch PVC, 5-inch PVC.
We've got a whole table that we submitted. Did you guys get all the information?
Yeah, we've got the table here.
yeah,
Second
but
sheet.
y'all defer to the engineer on something like that. I'm not going to pretend to have the expertise.
The questions I have are, do we have approval to discharge? Okay, 1. 2, are they treating the discharge before it leaves the site, which is a requirement of the state permit? Okay, and 3, are we containing the 80th percentile storm event?
Handle each of those in, what's the first one?
Approval to discharge.
Approval to discharge.
Discharge.
Well, it discharges into the existing storm drain system that goes on to 1800 North.
So that ditch that they're discharging in is a storm drain system?
I apologize. The ditch, I don't know about any written permission to do that.
Okay.
I've just been doing it for so long. And the historical flow, I'm sure that's where it went before.
Who owns that ditch?
I'm thinking it would be USA
Okay,
as part of the Willard Canal.
okay.
It's not a,
It's not western then.
it's not an irrigation
No,
ditch.
okay.
It's not a drainage ditch
Yeah.
from an western irrigation or anything like that.
No, okay. That's what I was curious about.
So the historical release going underneath the canal and then on down 1800 North, I guess that's into the city system. 1800 North would be the city.
Yeah, most likely.
So that would be my answer on that one. City
Okay.
system for the primary outlet
Okay,
and historical drainage into the ditch along the Willard.
okay.
Mind you, the road drainage is all flooding down through our stormwater system. So this road that had an original coming through here It is draining out through here, through Sam Knight's property, and then back through our system and back through too also, so.
So 2,000, what you're saying, or 1,800?
2,000.
Okay. All right,
When we did the Knight Center, we had a pipe that carried the highway flow directly into the Peterson system. And that's been,
okay. Pretty me. Are they treating the discharge before it leaves their site?
not in the traditional way of a oil water separator or anything like that.
Okay,
What we've got is,
Drain boxes.
Drain boxes are all sand.
Multiple
traps.
drain boxes with sand traps.
okay.
With inlet heights and then discharge are slightly lower than the flows to trap and sediment out.
And then with the new construction, we need to look at the 80th percentile storm events.
what's kind of interesting is on the north side of this project, right in front of the new construction, what we've got in Pleasant View, you'd have the storm drain come here and flow nicely down the hill. Far west, it's more like an irrigation system where you've got a flat bottom where things rise up and then finally pushes out. And that's kind of what we have. What we're finding is that we shot the top of water elevations in that area R, just on the north of the entrance. And we found out that the water elevation was at elevation 42.6. All the grades are about 3 feet above that.
Okay,
Going underneath the canal, it almost duplicates that exactly. So what I'm saying is the water is backing up. What the data is saying is that the water is backing up to elevation 42.6 all the way from 1800 north on the other side of the canal.
okay,
Fortunately, all I can think, and that's in, right now it's 90 degrees. If you were to go out there right now, look in those grades, you'd find water 3 feet down. And what we did, Mia Meadows, everybody know where Mia Meadows and Hales Estates? When we did Hales Estates, that was like a 24-inch pipe that discharged over to the 2700 North Pond. It dropped 1 foot in a mile. So you've got the pond, the piping to the pond becomes part of the pond system. But as long as it never surfaces out of any of the lowest grades, you're okay. And so that's kind of what we have. When you look at detention, I was going to discuss the pond. The piping system is part of the pond that goes, I guess that goes all the way to the church farm. There's piping at 1800 North that goes by the stake center out to that main ditch. As far as we just literally about an hour ago surveyed the landscape park pond. On this landscape pond, this is Harrisville Road. Here's the front of the building. Everything goes out this siphon box right here over to 1800 North. There's a little concrete area that's sloped with like a 2-foot graded inlet. The pond would overflow into that through the siphon box and over to 1800 North. The pond looks, capacity-wise, it looks better than it is mathematically. We, if you look along Harrisville Road, you've got a drop off of like 5 to 6 feet. From the bottom of the pond to that grate is about 2.5 feet. We've got from there to there, we've got roughly a third of the detention volume that mathematically we should have.
Okay.
Would there be a situation where the siphon, if you had a major rainfall event, okay, where the siphon wouldn't handle the overflow? Because that's your security. Your siphon's your security when that detention basin is at capacity. And my question is, and that's one of the reasons why I'd probably like to ask that of Matt, you know, when that detention basin reaches capacity, the issue then becomes, what is the capacity of the siphon?
Siphon seems to be adequate because it's tied in so well to 1800 North. So it's not impeded. And I believe we actually can't see the size of the pipe in it. We believe it's a 24-inch, which is good. We're not dealing with the, like the internal Peterson pipes, they're 6 and 8 inches. So the proofs, this is hard because the numbers are condemning, but the historical functionality of things is very good. And so I've never known that. Maybe you can help me out. Has that siphon ever back drained?
Nope. Has that been
There's
the,
stuff out to the south too, so that ditch runs all the way along the canal. There's another siphon down at the south end of the property.
So that's a secondary overflow.
In area G,
No, way farther.
It's over here.
You just did the south.
This wraps around with it, follows the canal.
so before you ever put that park in, that siphon was part of the system. Has history then.
Yeah, I believe
I mean, that wasn't
We didn't
installed.
install anything under the canal. That's been there. the whole
Okay,
time.
that's my question. That had nothing, that was there. Historically, it's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
That's a little more comforting to me, rather, because that park is somewhat recent. So your test for flooding is a short time frame versus decades.
The park since 2005.
So let's see where we at. So it is kind of good in that this primary siphon, if anything overflows, it would go down this. And that was probably a Bureau of Reclamation installation as part of the Willard Canal back in the 60s. It would flow to the south and go down that secondary siphon. Yeah, that would be, which would be south of
Which the Bureau installed all those
south of G.
perforated siphon pipes all the way out from the canal going both ways, east and west,
Yeah,
which 2 of those run under the property also.
and you go on north up to Wasatch School and
Yeah.
all that.
But I've lived in front of this place for 40 years, worked at Peterson's. We've never had any flooding on the premises in the area.
Which is, was it 2 or 3 years ago when we had that really wet winter? That was a good
We
thing.
did just fill the detention pond, one of the fire hydrant systems outside of our building ruptured at the first of the year, first week of January. And took an 8-inch pipe for,
6 hours at least.
well,
Well, 1 o'clock in the morning.
1 o'clock till 8, 7 hours.
Which is interesting. So was that water in the bottom of the park?
Yeah, oh yeah, filled the whole park up. It's probably 4 feet deep at that point, 3 feet deep.
It handled it just fine then.
Handled it just fine. Flooded the Samnites, filled it up, all that
Yeah.
ran just beautiful.
I remember that.
Flooded our whole building on the inside. We had a lot of repairs to do because of the
Yeah.
ruptured Monte Vista pipe, but other than that.
That's where I go, I don't believe there's an issue here with it, with retention, and what we're doing doesn't change that profile. We're, the same footage that would collect stormwater today only will be more, driven into a pipe that we're gonna flush out, as you've witnessed with all of our other storm drains. So the profile of this property doesn't change with the building expansion that we're doing.
Well, and I went on site yesterday, and you have an impervious surface there now.
Yes.
If you didn't, we'd be having another conversation.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, once the building's up, you're gonna do the same thing with the
Yeah, we already have.
roof drains, yeah, exactly.
It's
It's
water
all-
can't
It's
penetrate.
all gonna go right
One
down
way or
into
the
the pipes anyway
It's the
directly.
capacity.
So it's almost,
creating
it might
additional
almost
capacity.
improve it, if not, if anything.
Yeah, 100%.
The imperviousness has already been tested. You're not changing, like Lou's saying.
If you were there on site, the yellow bollards, they're the stormwater for the.
I was mainly looking, I thought, well, if you just got a gravel bed, that's permeable,
Yeah,
and you're putting an impermeable building on it, we've changed
Yeah.
the scenario, but obviously that's not what's happening. So,
Does that answer the questions on kind of where we're at? I mean,
Yeah, like I say, historically, if whoever owns that ditch isn't complaining, and it's been there that long,
it's yeah.
I would,
Bureau ditch. It's not a-
again, I would,
Use it for anything but
I would
pumping water.
I would like to have permission to do it, if it were me. Okay, somewhere in writing, so if they ever came back. So,
I
But
can
that's me.
I can appreciate your perspective.
that's
on it.
me. And as long as you're treating your discharges before you leave your site, that's all that's required. You can discharge, it's legal to discharge, okay? You just have to treat them before they leave your site. So, and like I say, I agree with Lou and the impervious. I looked at the aerials, and it's an impervious surface. You're putting a roof over it. So, don't have a real problem with that, but you still need to contain and calculate for the 80th percentile storm. And how do you do that with that monsoon we had the other day?
Well,
It's the average storm.
yeah, if we look, we.
It
we've
sounds
got
like you've
good
got it covered.
historical Track record there as well. We can talk about,
Sure.
no arc monsoons.
Well, but this is more that he's got to provide the calculations that show that the average 80th percentile storm. So if we have a 10-inch storm, you have to retain 80% of it before you can discharge, okay? Sounds like you got that covered easily. You just need to provide the calculations for that.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate it. We see this as a non-issue as well. We can provide the data, but,
yeah, Yeah.
we're aligned there.
Okay, now, are we okay with, are you satisfied with this? Okay. There's one item here I want to read from Matt Robertson. I don't know if, did you guys get a copy of his report? He says here, the stormwater report, let's see here, I'll just preface it. Number 2, there's an existing private drain line on the site that is shown below the proposed building. They are proposing to encase the pipe in concrete and build over the top. We recommend relocating the line if possible to keep it out from under the building. If it can't be relocated, provide the structural details for encasement
okay, the siphon.
and drawings and coordinate with them,
Okay.
so.
So currently it's already encased in
Okay.
that footing. That's
Oh, it's already encased? Okay,
Yeah, so it's already encased in a stainless steel 1/4-inch wall pipe that we welded.
Oh, okay.
I don't have any physical pictures.
No, it's
of
okay.
it.
No,
So it's encased in that, and then it's a 6-inch PVC running through the center of that.
okay,
There's a footing because we put that big heavy part on that pad, so there's a foundation footing in the middle of that pad that's 8 feet thick.
Right.
Concrete sitting down inside there. It goes right through the center of that. It had about 600,000 pounds on it for the last 2.5 years.
oh, really, okay.
And
Was that that big sand blaster?
yeah,
Yeah,
power.
The Willy Wonka looking.
yeah.
So that's what that was.
Yeah.
Recently we took it down, but if If it hasn't broke with that on it, it ain't.
Oh, it won't
broken.
break, no.
So it'll be good. We can definitely on the west or on the east side, when we start doing that floor right there for that expansion
Right,
right there, we can take pictures of that and show you how it's designed and built.
Well, I think at that point, I think it'd be just something that you'd, make sure the building inspector, Nate sees it, yeah. So that's up to the building inspector,
All the like culinary water, utilities, gas and stuff will all be relocated
right?
into the building. It's just that stormwater pipe.
Okay, I'm just going off these line items and everything. So, let's move over to the landscaping, okay? There's an issue with that because, I know the entire site doesn't meet the 10% minimum requirements. With this park on the north end, that is 0.7 acres, which is, typically for the size of property you have, we should have close to 3 acres of landscaping, and you've got 0.7. And that's kind of an issue because, correct me if I'm wrong, but the commission, that we don't have the ability to override that city code. Okay, it has to go through advisory committee, is that right, Ken? Appeal authority.
Yeah, appeal authority, and to request a variance, you have to meet 5 criteria, all of them, and these are dictated by the state. The planning commission and the city council don't have the authority to even grant that variance. So were the decision made negative in both cases, you have the right to appeal, and that would then become a judiciary matter, and there would be a professional attorney involved. I've been involved in those, and I can tell you they'll pull out that list of 5 and say, you have to absolutely meet all 5 requirements. If you meet 4 of the 5, it's not gonna work. So just tell you the process. So we don't get in the middle of changing rules here, okay?
Even if we wanted to, we couldn't, and neither could the city council.
And the issue is not, if we were talking about your 9.97%, that would be one issue, but you're only at 1/4 of that. Based on your acreage, you should have 2.8 acres of open space, and you have 0.7. That's 1/4 of the required amount. So it's not even close.
So here's, I don't know, if you wanna,
I was,
how do you wanna?
tell you what I was hoping for. This is a real nice park. It's been deeded to the city and maintained by Peterson. I'm not arguing the numbers, but as far as the code section, you got the letter.
Yeah, I've got a copy of the code right here.
It matches the item by item code requirements very well. Rock, meaning a variety of landscaping. I was hoping that the quality of the landscaping could play into the quantification.
Well, it looks beautiful. I mean, and you guys do a great job maintaining it, and we have no problem with that. It's just that 10%. And we don't
And
have,
I've been on site. I will grant that's probably the best looking parcel of park,
or
far
retention
west.
basin for that
It's
matter.
well designed, well maintained. We're not talking about that. And we are not in the business to adjust the percentage based on the quality of the park. I'm telling you that so you don't pursue it very long, okay?
I like that part.
Well, I'm sure you do. And if that were in the code, it's 10%, but if it's a really beautiful park, it's only 8% or something like that, fine. That's not what's in the code. And it would complicate the life of the city personnel beyond measure if they had to go out there and quantify the level of beauty or attractiveness of each park to determine where that percentage should fall.
Can
So
I ask-
I'm just saying that doesn't factor in the 10%.
Could be an ordinance amendment?
If we thought it was worthy of that, but we'd have to go through the whole process of
Public hearing.
public hearings, justifying changing the code and all of that.
Yeah, it was.
So.
And
gentlemen,
typically, just let me finish, typically, you wouldn't do that on the basis of a single incident. You'd do it because for the benefit of the future of Far West, this is the way we want to operate for not only this site, but all of the sites and all of the developments in the future. Okay, so.
Team, the bearing, I have on this, we're going through this whole process, but I come back and maybe help me understand a bit here. This discussion about landscaping, how is that pertinent to the specific building section on my property? Are we commingling things?
Actually,
know-
no, it's reasonable that your property, 28 acres, came into existence before the current code. You're now
100%.
making a modification on that. So now the current code is relevant.
Well, how
Just
far
like-
back do I have to fix sins? I mean,
Well,
because
if
we
you're-
would say that pertains to somebody changing something in their house too.
That's exactly what happens.
And that
But-
happens.
But how
If-
far back do we make them go to remedy that, or do we
Well,
take
you-
exception to that piece?
Well, then you're talking about a variance, and that's when you go into
The advisory.
an appeal authority and actually plead your case, that there is a mechanism, understand that. We're not in that business. In fact, we can't even legally tamper with that. What we do is we understand the zoning ordinance, we try to explain the rationale for it, and then we're in the business of listening to requests and seeing if they comply with our requirements.
For
I
example,
don't know
just
how I
wondering-
can make it any clearer than that.
Well, I'm just going, hey, are we opening up? And I'm asking for some clarification. I'm
no,
not
you're fine.
debating.
That's what we're here for.
But are we opening up a can of worms that's absolutely necessary on a building property that's been here for 40 years? We're doing this thing and I'm touching a small section and improving it.
Yeah.
And by the way, I've got a $70 million government grant that's bringing money into this city that I'm delayed on because we can't get moving. And I've got jobs today that I'm having to turn away that are putting Peterson in financial hardship because I can't get them into my facility until this expansion is done.
Is there-
I'm looking for.
Is
this
there
a
other
win for
locations
us.
on the site where this could be produced?
No.
I'm gonna bring up a can of worms, should I?
Go ahead.
Okay, when the roller coaster was put in, we had, and we've got minutes to
That was
go
back in
about,
2018.
but we can validate that. It was with a clear understanding that that building was temporary, and when the roller coaster left, the building would leave. We got it in the minutes, it's recorded. The building is still there, okay?
It's been 7 years.
And we've been waiting for that to disappear for years now. So you got to understand that makes my sympathy for your case considerably less when you haven't honored a commitment you made years ago. Yes, it was. It's in the minutes.
It's in the minutes.
By set point.
It
Well,
was,
regardless,
it was made by a representative from your company.
regardless, we were told that when the roller coaster was going to be done, that building was temporary and that building would be
And that was the
dismantled.
condition.
And that was a condition of the building permit.
We would never have said yes on it because we thought, okay, they're going to do that. In 2 years, it's gone.
In addition, that building that was being erected never even came across the planning commission's desk. Somewhere along the line, it made it through the process
Without
here
a
in the
site
city.
plan approval or
Without a
anything.
site plan, didn't even come to the planning
So
commission.
you talk about backdooring it, it was backdoored all the way.
It was,
Well, and I'm not trying to back towards
No.
gentlemen.
No, I'm
also-
just simply saying,
Are we punishing me for the sins?
I'm
that
not
I know
funny,
of?
no, I'm just saying you're in thin ice asking for a
Let-
special
let me give
consideration
you an
when you haven't
example.
even honored the previous one.
let me give you an example. I mean, this is just, it's not related to your property. It's like, the building inspector talked about a house that he was inspecting. They were remodeling the inside of the house. Okay. The guy got a building permit and everything like that. Well, then,
I think there's a
once he got that building permit,
hole there.
when he went in there to inspect the home, he had to bring everything else up to code. Even though the home was built, 40, 50 years ago, it had, since it was being remodeled and changes were being made inside, it has to be bring up the current code. It's state law. And that's the same thing with
I'm not
this.
changing my entire facilities though. And
Right.
it'd be like us talking though about changing the bathroom or a closet versus remodeling the entire house.
I understand that.
So the scale is very different.
I understand that, but
And I can appreciate, I truly can, that, something was done well before this team's time.
but
And, but that's not the issue we're dealing with today.
I understand that.
Just respectfully asking, we've got a government grant that's putting the longevity and additional jobs in Far West at risk.
Well,
Is that,
Suggestion
are we?
for you.
The problem is,
have a way to get
is that we,
Suggestion?
Absolutely.
our hands are tied.
Contact the state of Utah property ombudsman. Okay? And see if what you're proposing to do would even fall into this criteria. Because it's an industrial site, you may be out of it. But you need to contact the property ombudsman who's gonna have to render an opinion. Okay? And he'll render that to the mayor.
That's a good idea. I didn't know that, Greg. You do. The problem is that our hands are tied. We have no authority to override that 10%, and neither does the city council. It has to go to the advisory committee.
How does the,
Not the
how does that
advisory, the,
determination of not applicable, could you tell me any more about that?
I used to work for Salt Lake County, and I know we had a lot of projects that we contacted the property ombudsman, and things changed. Okay, so they render an opinion. Okay, it's their opinion, and whether the council accepts it or not. Okay, there's the 5 criteria you have to meet are pretty substantial. Okay, we pulled it up over here. So number 1, it can't be self-imposed. Okay, economics, you're saying, the 70 million project isn't applicable.
Sure.
Okay,
It is applicable to the city of Far West.
Well,
I say that for us as a.
it is, but it's not. Okay, it is, but it's not with regards to meeting the criteria of the variance. Okay, so we can't look at that. Okay, granting a variance is essential to the enjoyment of substantial property rights. Okay, so possessed by others, so we're not preventing you from enjoying your property right. Okay, so you're not building an oversized building or something like that. A variance will be substantially affect the general plan. Okay,
Which we could touch on that one.
right. The spirit of the zoning ordinance is observed and a substantial justice is done. So you're trying to meet the ordinance, but you're not quite there. These are the 5 criteria that you have to meet. Now, here's one where the ombudsman may jump in, okay? Number 1 is the literal enforcement of the land use ordinance would cause an unreasonable hardship for the applicant that is not necessary to carry out the general purposes of the ordinance. Okay, but that's only 1. Now you got to meet all 5, okay, for the variance. But the ombudsman, okay, can render an opinion to the council on that. So that would be my suggestion, is to contact the state of Utah property ombudsman, get them involved, because that's what they deal with, is property rights. Okay? And so maybe use this first one. Okay? I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong, but that's one of the 5. Okay? And so by literally enforcing the landscape ordinance, potentially has an unreasonable hardship on you, okay? But that's something that the ombudsman's gonna have to determine.
But our hands are tied. Well, if we could make a decision, we would, but we can't.
Quite aside from code and everything else, there's the whole issue of aesthetics. And if you look at our master plan for the Far West City, we have purposefully put all manufacturing in the north end of Far West, okay? Simply because we are concerned about aesthetics. I'm not enamored by the fact that there's gonna be another 60-plus foot tall building gracing the corridor for Far West, 2000 West. Personally, Peterson came into existence long before we had a functional code and all of that, so there's history behind that. In my view, that's not the ideal location in Far West to have manufacturing. Historically, it's there, so it's there.
Would you like me to move it? Is that? the-
No, but
saying
I would not like you to move it, but I'm not anxious for you to make it bigger.
Well, that's what I'm up against. I've already, we are trying to grow jobs in Far West. We've got an opportunity to do that and bring high-skilled, high-paying jobs in. But I'm trying to hire for right now. Every day I delay the construction, and I appreciate the comment. It gives me something. But if we don't want this in Far West, if we don't want the jobs, then I need to know, and I have a conversation with the government. But I'm looking for help. This is good for, I think this is good for us.
But
That's,
but we're not saying that. But the fact is, we don't have the authority or the ability to approve this.
So
So-
I understand it as, this is why we're here today, is
Right.
to make sure we understand what are the things that hopefully we can do to get there together. I understand some of the history, and listen, probably some of the sins of the fathers, hit the sons, I guess, on this. But this is good for Far West. And I hope everyone sees that here and wants to be a part of something that brings in more high-paying jobs. Government funding that, is helping us from a nuclear defense for the United States of America. Like, that's what this is going to support. It's the nuclear glove box grant that, protects us as American citizens, brings high paying. It's a thing we should be proud of for Far West. So I want to, help me, help us is the piece.
Then all you can do is what Greg suggested. It has to go to an appeal authority. We can't, right, Mayor? We don't have the authority. Right, we don't have the authority to approve this. That's the problem. Yes.
If they were to acquire an offsite 2.1 acres, it could be pertinent to this project. Would that be?
Who?
Pardon?
If they were to acquire a 2.1 acre offsite property dedicated to landscaping, could that be?
On Peterson's property?
Thinking anywhere, I mean, getting really creative.
He's talking about somewhere off-site, so if they were to go,
But around, because I have other, if that was an option, other things around here.
That has some appeal. Just pretend it's 10%, or that we've got a beautiful one that's good enough for 10% doesn't satisfy me. I will admit it's my personal bias that I don't like the notion of having another big building like that. You could argue, well, you've already got two, and what's an extension gonna matter? I can understand that argument, but I'm not comfortable with giving much ground on that 10%. Now, if it could be accomplished in some other creative way, that's something we would certainly entertain.
But it would have to be on site though,
Or owned.
or owned.
Yeah, I don't know that it has to be on site. I mean, obviously,
Well, I
or deeded, or, we're getting into some,
I thought that,
No, but it's worth.
I thought the 10% landscape requirement is on the piece of property that's.
but
being
I'm
built
saying,
on.
if we went in that direction, that to me is a goodwill gesture to try to comply with the ordinance, okay? I'm not speaking for anybody else, by the way. I'm just expressing a view. So speak up, people.
Well, I thought that the landscaping is pertinent to the property itself, that where the building, where the construction is gonna be.
It is.
Okay, so why can it be on a different piece of property somewhere else in the city?
Okay, then
That's my question.
the
I mean,
answer
help me answer that.
okay,
Help
the
me.
answer is a categorical no,
Help me
unless
answer
you
that.
go to an appeal authority and get a rendering in your favor. There, that's the simple answer.
It's just that,
What if it's adjacent?
Yeah, if it's
If it's adjacent.
If it's
I-
contiguous,
Personally, if it's adjacent, and I'm expressing one person's view, I would have no problem with that myself.
So if I do that, and we can work through some of that, that doesn't,
The site plan for this is Peterson Properties owning property, right?
right,
Peterson Inc. owns the property to the south. And you have the field next to it, the one house in the field there, all that is landscaped.
I got a horse pen,
There's another 3 acres there, so.
but you've
It's
got,
owned by Peterson Inc.,
you've
but it's
got-
not owned by
Yeah.
these guys.
but the other eyesore is that control building, that building that housed the controls for that roller coaster. That was
Yeah,
supposed to have
that-
come down.
And that's something,
again, I
I
guess,
understand that.
Well-
It was supposed to have come down 8 years ago.
but that
7
would
years
very
ago.
likely be part of the package.
Yeah.
You know, if we're gonna beautify and enhance the appearance of Far West, why not honor a commitment that was made to us?
But as far as this goes, we don't have the,
let's be very clear, that's a financial piece that I don't have funding for to be able, and we need that, that's another piece of the building for Peterson.
on that south end,
Yes.
Okay,
There's
but we-
storage that's providing.
but we have it in the minutes, that building would be dismantled after the roller coaster was done.
It was never,
It was never intended to be a permanent structure.
nor did it go through the formal
It didn't
process.
go through the formal process. It somehow made it through the city under the
Well,
mayor's.
it happened because we were told it was gonna disappear when the roller coaster disappeared. So nobody worried about it.
And it's still there after 7 years. So, anyway,
I understand the frustration, I
there's
do.
a lot of frustration.
I can feel it,
So,
but I'm trying to take care, and I'm glad to address or to find a solution on that piece, if that's,
no,
but I'm trying to take care of the solution at the matter at hand on this.
but I just want to reiterate, and I said this a dozen times, if we had the authority to supersede that 10%, we would consider it. We'd have a discussion and vote on it. But we don't. It's a state law because it's in our city code. And the only way to do it is go through the appeal.
It seems like we're open to some opening, because we're just talking about an adjacent piece here that we could be doing. So it seems like,
We're not, understand, we're not inflexible. We're bound by rules that we have to follow.
100%.
And we are also bound by, we're trying to represent what's in the best interest of Far West. Now, you talk about employment, and that's fine. I'm talking about aesthetics and availability of open space and other things, which are also important to our citizens as well. So we factor all of this in our decisions. And we're not hiding behind the variance. If we had a vote tonight, it very likely wouldn't be positive anyway. So you understand what I'm saying? So the fact that we're putting up that variance doesn't mean if it weren't in front of us that we'd say yes.
And that's the
Because there's
reason
some
that it's going
concerns that have been expressed since we've been talking. So we're not there yet. And we can't act on it because it would require a variance. And we're not there yet in terms of what you're proposing being particularly satisfying, okay? And is that,
Yeah, I'm
and I
trying to
understand,
be creative. Yeah,
well, and I understand your perspective. I understand our perspective. It just happens that they're doing this right now.
is there another avenue possibly to have a project phase applicability? Meaning, right now, we're looking at this. The project is only right here, covering how many acres?
I mean, it's
How big is that building anyway, just out of curiosity?
Just 175 by 150.
150, oh, I'm just curious.
Yeah, can we work these, I think what you're saying is, can we work these as toll gates through here? I need to get going. Is there a way to work these through toll gates while we work to an amicable solution on the landscaping? I mean, it's trees, we could figure something out. Can we work this as a toll gate towards something where I can start doing the stuff so that I'm not stuck in the winter?
I'd have to say, I wouldn't feel comfortable unless we had locked in all the commitments, not just you do one and then maybe we'll do two. No, it would be, it doesn't bother me if it's done in phases, but the whole package has to be
Having the
agreed
site
upon.
Plan approved.
Yes.
With the landscaping.
With the landscape
Showing
included as
phases
part of
and-
it, yes,
and
yes.
Timeline.
Is there any way to, it's a half acre building, where I'm going with this. It's a half acre building, to redraw this plan such that this is applicable to that.
Well, you don't want to change the size of the building, obviously.
No, so we have a half acre
Oh,
building,
yeah.
project specific with a 0.7 acre park. Then we meet the 10%.
No, because you've got
I
the,
see where you're going with
I see where you're going with that. I don't know.
that.
Is there a way around that, you think? Or is there something we can discuss?
I'd want to think on that one.
I don't know, we have to look at the,
I think I'd want the
Well, we'll-
percentages adjusted a
what?
little more in our
Okay.
favor, Jim.
Lou?
I think you know where I'm going with
Lou,
that.
but we can certainly talk to Leah. City attorney.
If there's a pathway through this where we feel comfortable, we're representing the citizens of Far West and we're complying with the code, we'll entertain it.
Why don't you send me an email with that proposal, and I will run it through Geneva, our chair, and then maybe we'll talk to Liam about it. Liam's our land use attorney. Liam Keough. So,
What's that?
nothing. I'm just,
Just look at it.
no, it's okay. No, yeah, send me an email with that proposal, because if we can get it through Liam, if Liam,
We're gonna, and I'll tell you
This-
this,
this-
we're gonna continue to invest, like Peterson is Inc. You know, the Peterson of old is not owned by, the current, it's
I
a
know.
different team.
Yeah, we
And we're
know
gonna
this.
continue to
We-
invest
we
in
know
here.
this.
And I'm more than happy, I mean, listen, I'm a hunter, I'm an outdoorsman.
yeah,
I'd love to put some more green into the property as we keep growing, and
Well-
we're gonna do more.
we,
So
Yeah.
I'm not against trees, here.
no, I understand that, but we had a situation where we had Peterson set to donate to build, to fabricate a dock for the disabled at the Smith Family Park, okay? And in between that time, we got the commit from Peterson Manufacturing, the old one, then it was bought by Persimmon and then Centerbridge, then they said no. It increased our cost to get that ADA dock built by $54,000.
Please understand, and
I
I was
know.
here for that decision, I made it, so if you wanna be mad,
No,
understand,
I'm-
I've had to
just saying
leave
that,
70 people off in my facility. I've had to shut down a facility in Pocatello. I Peterson's in trying to survive, so I apologize that, that commitment that was made many years ago on
yeah,
that.
and it's been difficult to even, it's taken us, it's extended a whole year, we've had to buy.
Peterson does a lot of good for Far West. I think, whether through donations, through community involvement, we're doing a lot already.
I understand that, but when we ask for even a donation for the dock, we couldn't even get a dime. So it's hard for us, for me especially, for this, because we work so hard to get that here. But let's go back to the matter at hand. We're not against this, okay? I'm not against it. It's just that our hands are tied when it comes to that 10%.
Be a little careful with that.
How can we say our
I am.
hands are tied though, and then also talk about adjacent property
Well,
flexing the deal?
you're right,
Like,
you're right.
either our hands are tied or they're not. It sounds like we're saying two things.
Couple questions I have, okay? Lou, couple questions. I understand you need more parking, okay? If you're gonna be hiring more employees,
100%.
okay? Question I have, so it kind of kills the idea that I have, is maybe putting in some islands and planters in your parking lots. Trees.
Or you'd have to put in a lot to make up that. I mean, that would be an
I'm just saying,
enormous.
it's a start,
Yeah, but a token offering at best.
you know?
I know where you're coming from, like LID,
Yeah,
if
but
you show the best option you have,
Uh-huh,
it can be mathematically
right.
efficient.
Again,
You're right,
just to,
volume wise. I'm not gonna do that.
But yeah, I agree with Lyle. Send him that
Send me that
proposal.
email, send me that proposal.
Oh, yeah.
And the only reason I say that is because Liam Keough, our attorney for the city, I'll talk to him and say, okay, this is the situation they're up against. We understand your situation, but we still have to have these codes that we have to abide by. But let's look at that, and I'll send it through
There's a way
Geneva, the
there.
chair.
Because I'm with you. If there's a way there,
There's
that
gotta
would
a
be
way
great.
around it. There's gotta be, yeah, we'll figure out. a
Well,
way.
it's not necessarily around it, it's just an
And
alternative.
that's what I meant, is an alternative.
We're not going around it necessarily.
No,
We're
I'm not
just
saying
looking
we're
at an
going around it. We're
alternative
just looking at
approach.
an Alternative approach and creative approach. So send me that email. I'll send it to Lee. I'll run it up the flagpole. Okay? Let's try that and see what,
Yeah,
You
yes,
gotta get
Ken?
ready for that.
It's a place to start. And it's an appeal process.
Curious, this is, I have a question.
Okay,
So in some instances, we do development agreements. Let's ask Liam if it's possible to do a redevelopment agreement. Have an agreement to allow things to go forward as well as, plan to get compliant.
yeah,
Is that something reasonable?
%, because we're gonna continue to modify that site. That building that is an eyesore for this, for several of you on this, that very well could disappear. And, because it's not something that's entirely functional for us as is today. As we keep growing and bringing more, I'd be 100% okay with that.
you can improve that.
Well, as I said, it's not, today it's having to play a role for us to keep operating. I inherited it, but it's not the building we want of the future. And, something like that where we could.
A redevelopment agreement.
That's
a way
Because
I'd be
sometimes you
100%
There's other
and amendments
alternatives. we
to
can
a site
explore.
plan, for instance, it's like, okay, if the site plan shows that building, then it's part of the site. If the amended one shows that building disappearing, then that's part of the site.
The other thing we get out of the
There's
development.
compliance across the
Right,
whole thing.
exactly.
The process can be easy. We just need to follow it.
Also allows us to do kind of the phased approach too. So we
Yeah,
can say,
so
If there's an agreement going, okay, this, and this,
let's.
I would love to
let's
lay out a
look at it.
multi-year plan because, I see Peterson Properties there, Peterson Incorporated, becoming, having more green, being that. So if there's a way we can do phased, the way we can work through this, I would love to entertain it.
We'll-
I know I'm losing daylight on some of the
No, you're
stuff that's
fine.
critical.
We're looking up to this. What was your name? You're Scott?
I got an idea.
I'm Justin Meehan, I'm the GM.
Okay, okay.
Scott Sugimoto was the one that
He's the
had
one I
the.
was working through on that project, yeah.
It's okay.
No, it's okay. I just have.
I know, let's put trees on top of the building. We got
There you
it
go.
solved.
Why not?
Anyway,
Roof structures.
okay, well, we got a meeting to start. He will send me the emails and we will send it. We'll look at the development, like a redevelopment agreement, see if we can do it through our attorney and see if we can figure out other alternatives.
Thank you.
Look at Snowbird. Snowbird's got green roofs.
If you weld the trees to the top, does that count?
They gotta be able to grow.
There was
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. I'm Lyle Earl, the vice chair. I am covering for Geneva while she is on some other business with her job. Oh, shoot, will you give the prayer? Lou, give the pledge?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have the prayer by,
Which is.
Pledge first. Yeah.
what's your name?
Darren.
Darren. By Darren Rollins.
My name's Lyle.
And then we'll have the pledge by Lou.
All stand, repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be here for a planning commission meeting this evening. We ask you to bless us that thou will counsel us to do those things which are right and correct for the city. We're grateful to be residents of this city and to enjoy the things that we do in this beautiful area that we live. We're grateful for our country and ask thee to bless the leadership of our country that they may make the correct decisions. We ask thee for thy spirit and thy favor to be upon all the residents of the city and to protect them. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, do we have any public comments? Anybody? Okay, moving on, report from the city council. Tim?
We, as a city council, did not meet between your last meeting and this one. Because of the free.
Oh, perfect.
Not in any significant for me to report happened between time, so carry on.
Move on. Okay,
Unless you got something for us.
no, not yet. You mean you want us to give you assignments instead? Okay.
That'd be fun.
Okay, moving on to business items, a recommendation to the city council, approval or denial of the Camden Dell Holdings commercial site plan. Dale, will you come up and tell us what you're Camden, sorry. I'm sorry, state your name and address.
Caleb Stoker,
Okay.
1296 West 1100 North.
Okay,
So what we're doing there, we bought that property. We were working through getting it ready to develop so we can put some tradesman shops there. We had a conditional use permit that was approved last fall, I believe it was, on it. We've submitted all that. I submitted the wrong file to the engineer office. I didn't know that till Monday when he got back to me with all the comments, but we've since addressed all of his comments and sent them back and waiting on him to review them and Buena Vista. So that's kind of where we're at.
okay. Thank you. Just, you can stay up here because they might have questions.
I do have one.
Yeah.
Have you resolved the issue of the secondary water?
Yes,
Because
that is on there, but
your landscape plan depends upon
That's,
it.
that's what I was gonna bring up.
So Buena Vista is going to provide water for us for the irrigation. And I've got that. They've given us permission to do that. So,
He was grandfathered in, and so they've allotted a little bit of the.
Okay, so
corner.
yeah, we had to go through and we had to, before we even bought the property, I got permission. So they
Yeah.
had us submit how much gallons we were going to use approximately and what type of planning we were going to do.
That's documented and in writing.
Right here, because Geneva says you probably need it, but yeah, I've got that all approved and everything, so.
So, and then, as far as the, just for your information, as far as the stormwater and the SWAP and the management agreement and so on and so forth, those, from what I understand, will be completed and ready for the city council next.
They're already been done, they're just,
Oh, they're done?
I sent them into this, I sent them this afternoon to
Okay,
the engineer
so-
and whoever, but yeah, they're all there. The only thing we won't have, I just need to do we're waiting for Buena Vista to get back with me for their final approval, but I've sent all them what they wanted to, so.
Okay, and so that'll be ready for the city council next week. So, does anybody have any other questions?
I just, do you have anybody that's interested in coming in that building yet by chance, or is it just build and then see?
I'll put my office or my section, I'll take up one, maybe 2 units, probably one, but then I haven't got it yet, but no. So, but I'm sure it won't be hard to fill.
Yeah,
It's good to see something happen there.
yeah.
We waited for a while.
Yeah, it's kind of an eyesore. So, anyone else? Okay, do I have a motion?
I motion we recommend to the city council approval.
Okay, motion by Greg,
I'll second.
second by Darren. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion approved. Okay, approval of the minutes dated.
He needs to go to city council next week.
Oh, yeah, next week, city council is 6:30. Okay, thank you. Approval of the minutes dated June 26, 2025. Do I have a motion?
Move we approve the minutes.
Motion by Jason,
Second.
second by Lou. All in favor? Say aye. Motion passes. I guess I should ask if there's any nays. Okay, I'm still learning this. Okay, report on assignments. Greg?
None at this time.
Okay, Lou?
Nothing to report.
I do have one item, but I can't remember what the dates are. Fishing club, I know we're a month away, but we've got to get that, start working on it right now. We're looking at the fishing club dates, starting on September 6th, the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th. And we'll probably registration start opening up probably around the 11th of August. So we're about a month away, but
Got our registration software all.
registration software is fixed and we will not have any surprises and or 30 kids signed up. So we'll only have to buy 60 hot dogs with the parents. So
Thank you, thank you.
yeah, we're gonna watch that like a hawk. And so, and I don't have anything. We had a, yes. Oh, Tim, I'm sorry.
I'm willing to help you, so.
Okay.
If you need something
We'll, no, it'll help. Yeah, we're gonna limit it to 15 kids. And, but this time we decided we're gonna go with T-shirts as well. But this time we're gonna have it set on the program. So when they register, they will give the shirt sizes then. So it'll be easier for us. Then once everything's done, then we can get them ordered and get them done. Hopefully have them to the kids within the next couple of weeks of the class. So anyway, but we have a park meeting next Tuesday, but we haven't had one for a few weeks, so I don't have anything else. Darren?
No, I was supposed to go to the active transportation meeting, but I was a day late and $1 short on that one.
I got you covered. I was there.
Did you? Okay, I got anyway, the last email I got that it was at noon today and I didn't
really?
get any change of time. So maybe Jason can.
Jason?
So on that one, there's actually some really interesting stuff. A group called Bike Utah, is that correct? Yeah, they came and they put together a bunch of like overlay plans, recommendations on how to make a lot of our roadways safer for our active transportation goals, and helping with meeting our master plan, but enhancing it. It's pretty well detailed, thought out. It seems like they might have spent some money putting this plan together for us. Yeah, so it was all really impressive. They've got a lot of recommendations that are impacting areas that we have full control of, but also areas that we depend on UDOT buy-off and obviously involvement. But it was really impressive, and it wouldn't just impact the active transportation. It would just be general traffic flow. Which is why I got invited to that meeting, was because of the tie I have to the traffic committee.
Now, didn't you have a traffic committee meeting as well?
The day before, we got a few interesting things. Actually, Dave Anderson from the office in here, he got us access to the data for those electronic signs. Not all of the signs report data or can have data collected. They're really just reminders. 2 of them are like that, I believe is what it was. But then the rest of them, they all do have data, and we can pull reports. And that will help further the goal that the traffic committee has to try to recognize hotspots. Maybe recognize like, oh, here's a pattern. These nights at these times, there's 1 or 2 cars that are regularly going way above the speed limit, that sort of thing. And that should help with some of the calls and concerns that citizens are having.
Okay.
So some of that can maybe be incorporated in the master plan?
Absolutely.
Good, great.
I mean, some of it we could put in our plan, but again, it's dependent on UDOT involvement.
Right, but that's great.
Right, okay, thank you. Anything else? Anyone?
We haven't had the youth city council meet in a while, so we might need to stir that pot a little bit.
I know that they're doing what do they call that, Ken, over the park?
Just because you asked me, I lost the word as well.
No.
Because of our age.
Yeah, it's the youth cell.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah, the entrepreneur that's coming up. Let me look at it real quick. I can't remember the date.
I think it was awesome.
Yeah, I think it is. I've got the information here from, anyway, oh, here it is right here.
They wanted to do the Smith.
The 16th, yeah, of August at the Smith Family Park. And so they're coming to the planning, the park meeting on Tuesday to discuss the logistics and everything like that. So anyway, we'll have more information then further on down the line. So anyway, okay, anything else?
No, that's it for me.
Okay, so do I have a motion on the adjournment?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second. Okay, motion by Darren, second by Jason, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Did you make it a little shorter?
We can try.
Now that the mic's turned off, it was a lot shorter than the other meeting. And less frustrating.
If the work gets done, the work gets.
We're just more efficient than the city council.
Hey, I went to the, listen.